You can tell I've been screaming all night, even in my dreams. And that's Tony, you see, sitting to my left? Yeah. That's Tony. And Tony, as you know, I have a lot of faith in this guy. He really works on these things. I suspect at some point in the future he will be a scout somewhere. Hopefully it stays in the Bay Area. But Tony's got it. I'll tell you right now, what we're gonna do. Tony, get in here, man. I'm so excited. I can't relax here. The first time we've had a first round pick in how many years? Good God, I thought it'd go on forever. So, here we are. We're sitting at the crossroads, and Tony just mentioned something to me you may know about already. The 49ers are looking to do what in the first round?
They want to move into the top 10. Diana Russini put out a tweet with that report. And the way they do that is through Ayuk or Debo, and I assume the 31st pick to move up.
Oh! And you know what? I could guarantee anybody that Ayuk or Debo, those are big chips. If I'm sitting in another team or somewhere and I hear about that, whoa, give John Lynch a call right now. I need to talk to him. Tony, get into it, man. Talk about the players that the premier players and also the gold helmet guys that we can be looking forward to. The 49ers should be picking up. It's all of you.
I'll go through a couple of the top guys. I don't know if we'll have a chance at them. I'll start with Malik Neighbors, though. And if we were to trade into the top 10, it would require Ayuk, not Debo. He's a much more valuable asset in the eyes of the NFL. But if that means we give up 31 in Ayuk to move up to 5 to get Neighbors, that would be something I'd be okay with. Maybe the only scenario I'm okay with Ayuk leaving. But he's my number one receiver in the draft. I know Marvin Harrison Jr. has the name, and he is a really good player. He's my 6th-ranked player in the draft, but Neighbors is different. He has the Odell Beckham Jr. catch the ball, snatch it out of the air, and then take a slant to the house for 80 yards. His route running, his hips, everything about him is so slippery and smooth. And then the yak, too. He's awesome after the catch, and that's one of the knocks I have on Harrison Jr., why he's not my number one. And so Neighbors, I think he's better than Ayuk, better than Debo. Of course, that's a projection. But I will say, if they had to make a move and they had to trade Ayuk, that would be the one situation I'm okay with. And the only reason why he's not the number one player in the draft is because Caleb Williams exists. And he might be the best prospect I've ever evaluated. And I've only been doing this for 5 years maybe, but yeah.
You've seen enough. And Tony, the thing is that you're saying that Ayuk and Debo are the chips. It does mean, like we were discussing privately earlier, the fact is the 49ers, if they get rid of somebody, they're going to look to fill that void with that same guy they got rid of, our defensive tackle here years ago, DeForest Buckner. And then we got something that didn't work out. Hopefully, if they do that this time, it will work out. I like your prospects.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I do worry about is you're doing player for player. And so that one player will always be compared to the guy you traded away. We saw with Buckner, because Kinlaw didn't work out, they never heard the end of that. So
we're still talking about it, even after he's gone.
That's true. Now, what I'll say, Neighbors is on a completely different class of prospect as Javon Kinlaw, who I thought was a top 10 player in that class. But Neighbors is a number one overall player in half the draft classes that we see every year. So for me, that's the guy I want if the Niners move up. His quarterback, though, I've seen people put this guy in the 20s. I just don't understand it. Jaden Daniels out of LSU. I know a lot of people know him because he was Ayuk's former quarterback. But everything about him is special. People will talk about, he doesn't throw over the middle of the field, and he doesn't have the strongest arm. But he's an elite processor. He might be the second or third best running quarterback in the league the second he steps down. You know, Lamar and Justin Fields are the only guys that I would say could be better. And Lamar isn't the same type of guy there anymore. But his arm, he can make every throw. I don't understand the whole arm strength thing because he has enough range and he can place it so accurately. I think he's the most accurate passer in the draft. That's the way I see him. So you have it mentally. You have enough physically, and the running element is real. I think him and Caleb are the only guys that I could see stepping into an offense day one and having a chance to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, get your guys into the playoffs. That's what I see out of him. So he's my number three rated player, higher than most people. But I genuinely, when Lamar Jackson came out, everyone knocked him. And of course, he's a different player. But I always felt like he was one of the 20 best players in the draft. And most people had him 30 or 40. Jaden Daniels is my number three. So to put that into perspective, I
It's a
just
good
think
move.
he's incredible.
And Jaden is actually a better passer, agreed upon by many, than Lamar Jackson ever has been. So this is that's intense.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say Lamar was a good passer coming out. People just weren't looking for the right things. They saw the mechanics weren't great. Um, but when you saw him throw with great mechanics, everything was pinpoint accurate. He can
Mm,
throw the ball 60 yards down the field with like a flick of the wrist. I
hmm
don't know if anyone in here remembers his first game against the Dolphins, where he had this 50-yard bomb to, I forgot who it was, but he just went like that. It was immediate and it went 50
You never
yards.
know. You
That
never
was the
know.
level of player he was coming out.
Continue.
Cool. So, in terms of my non-gold helmet guys, those are the main ones I'm not gonna really talk about a lot during the draft when they come. I did want to talk about them now, though. And the last guy in that tier is Nate Wiggins. Now, from what I've heard, he might be available at 31 because of the tackles, a run on tackles. You're going to have the run on quarterbacks. And then there's a few defensive players that I think are just far and away elite. You have the Leatu Latus, Dallas Turners,
Yeah.
Quinyon Mitchell, who I'm going to talk about in a second here. So he's in that second tier of elite defensive player. He's very slender, so he would probably need to put on weight at the next level. But I think he shows enough physicality. It just doesn't look that way because of how slender he is. And he might be the best cover corner in the draft. I really believe that. Put him in man, put him in zone. You're not going to get a step on him. And he's incredibly intelligent as well. They put him on an island constantly at Clemson, and he was able to hold his own against the best players in college football. So for me, if he's there at 31, you take him 10 times out of 10. I don't care if you have a great receiver or a great tackle on the board. He'll probably be higher on my board than any of those guys that are still available. And so he's a guy that I'd want definitely. I didn't include him in my gold helmets because I just have to limit it to 15 players, but he would have been one of the next few guys up.
I like that. And because cornerback is a position. When was the last time the 49ers won a season without a cornerback? That's the question. I mean, there's always one.
Yeah, I mean, they really haven't prioritized it really either. Charvarius Ward was their main way to prioritize that position, and he still got paid a mid-level contract. Like he's on a steal of a contract right now. But Akello was in the third round in 2017. Lenore 2020. You had what was his name from Penn State? Tariq Castro Fields. He was a sixth round pick
Oh,
that never got to
forgot about
training
him.
camp, right?
Right.
So they don't value that position. But from reports I've seen over the last few months, with Staley coming around and with the last year and how it went, they might look at coverage guys more as premier positions. I think the corners definitely, you need a lockdown corner. All the best teams in the league have them, and that's why we're so good right now on
Mm.
defense, despite having a really poor run defense and I honestly not a bad safety duo, pretty average. We have Charvarius Ward, and he's that good of a player. So you get another guy across from him, move Lenore
Uh,
back to the slot where he can be one of the best nickel corners in football. To me, that would be a dream scenario if he's there at 31.
Tony, do you feel that good about moving Demo into the slot? I thought he did okay. And one thing I do notice about Demo, he seems to actually evolve. Remember when he first started on the edges? He was getting smoked, and people still cry about that.
Yes.
But if they really look at the numbers and see at the end of the day and at the end of a few games, has Demo really hurt you out on the edge? I say no way. And you put him in the slot, you're right. He could grow like he's done on everything else he's done.
Now, what I'll say to that, because I completely agree with you, the Lenore situation is weird because I do think he limits how you can call your defense. But when he runs the defense the way you ask him to, he does a really good job.
Hmm.
So if you put Nate Wiggins out there, you can get more adjusty and you can put better combo coverages on the field for that specific week. where I'm not leaving Lenore on an island. I can do that
Yeah.
with Wiggins and Ward. And now I can send Crip, I can send 6 or 7 guys and still have great coverage. So to me, that's where I see Wiggins. It's not just about how well will he play, it's about the opportunities he'll give your defensive coordinator.
And I like the way you look at guys that are going to fit our program. A lot of players could go to other teams and do well, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a good 49er. So, and I noticed you've always paid attention to that detail. All right, let's hear some more.
Cool. So I'm gonna hop into the gold helmet prospects now. I
All
have
right.
15 guys I've identified for this draft. And it was tough. There were a lot of guys I had to leave out, like Nate Wiggins. He's one of them. But let's talk about Quinyon Mitchell. I think he's probably going top 10, top 15. He's my number 7 player in the draft, but he is, aside from Sauce Gardner, the best corner I've evaluated in the past 5 years. I
Whoa.
love this kid so much. The only knock you'll hear, he played at Toledo, and you couldn't really see all of the, elite receivers he could go against. But his real superpower is off coverage, where whether it's man coverage or zone coverage, he can trigger downhill so quickly, and he hits you like a kamikaze missile. I
Yeah.
use that term a lot for guys I adore. He is one of those guys. That's
He's a
why I love
49er.
Devon Witherspoon last year for the same reason. So but what's also good about him, he has all the speed that you need, right? He has the recovery speed as well, because some guys get beat and then they get in their own heads and they can't run down the field to get that receiver locked up again. He has all of that. His hips are super fluid, incredibly intelligent player. So he is the full package. I don't really see any weaknesses to his game. Can he improve a little bit in press? Yeah, but he's still going to be an above average player in that way when he comes into the NFL. So I have a really eerie feeling that the Eagles are going to trade up for him. I just have a feeling about that today. I really hope they don't get him because I do not want to play him in the playoffs. He's a tone setter for sure.
Because we've had guys, the Eagles have put people out there we abuse and make jokes about. Everybody knows about Debo and the Eagles. It's got to continue. They cannot get better this year. So, by the
Yes.
way, just noticing, Tony Wright also says, I've been hearing the news, is that the Niners will not pay Brandon Ayuk what he wants, as the Niners have to pay Brock Purdy next season and other players. And Tony,
That's stupid.
that monster's rearing its ugly head, and now they're going to stop lying about it and pretending they have magic money, which I've always wondered, how the hell did you guys sign that guy? Like last year, the tackle we got, I couldn't believe, Hargrave, I couldn't believe,
Yeah.
where did you guys get that kind of funding? So, they're not going to play with this. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I think they can pay him. The Amazon deal has really skyrocketed the cap, and we saw this year it was way above what we expected. But I
Yeah.
don't think you should let bad contracts dictate letting all pro players leave, right?
Yes.
He's not the second tier player. Like Lenore, I love him. He's not a guy that I'm keeping out of trade conversations. Ayuk is a first tier
Could get
player
something.
for your organization. You raised him basically. You got him to become an elite player for your scheme, not just in the receiving game, but run blocking. He's the only receiver you have that can consistently beat man coverage.
I
And he's
know.
a guy that your quarterback has rapport with, right? So I don't see how you can move on from him unless you're getting a Malik Neighbors in return. That's the way I look at that. So
Well, so they may back off the trade. If Neighbors goes too soon and the 49ers are still working on getting a deal done, calling every franchise in the league, it'd be just like draft night with I mean, it'd be like, you can't get this, you can't get that. Go to plan B, whatever that may be.
definitely. And I think they'll probably be on plan C or D even by the end of the night because so many things are going to happen today. It's going to be fun. But
Right.
yeah, so that's Quinyon Mitchell, one of my favorite players in this draft for sure. But Graham Barton is next. I know I talked about him in the mock draft episode Sunday, but he's probably the most pro-ready player on the offensive line in the draft, not named Joe Alt. I think he can come in. He'll be an elite run blocker, and he's a finisher. That's one of the main things I grade offensive linemen on. Will you finish the play? Do you have that mentality of, I'm taking this guy 80 yards away from where the running lane is going to be and split the Red Sea in that way? I don't want a guy who's just going to do what he's told and, kind of hold the guy and keep him from moving. I want you to drive people. And that's what
Have
he
an
can do.
attitude. Yes.
Exactly. And on top of that, the IQ to see blitzes and stunts, impeccable, really, really nice. And he's a great pass protector. You might think about, oh, his anchor isn't amazing, and maybe his ceiling isn't all pro, but I think he could be at that level someday. I really do in the right scheme. And I think he fits the zone running scheme anyway. But you can bring him in, he can start all five positions, and he will be an elite contributor from day one. One of the few, in my opinion, bust-proof players in the draft is Graham Barton, and he's my number 14. And that's why I have a gold helmet on him. I think he's just incredible, and he's not getting enough love. But I think he will go top 20 tonight. I can almost guarantee that.
Makes sense to me. All right. And
Yeah.
remember, Laken Tomlinson was a bust in Detroit, and he came to San Francisco, and he became just a pillar of our offensive line for years. Never got hurt. Oh, that guy was amazing. So, we'll see.
Yeah, I like that type of player. I think he can be even better than that. But a guy who you can just rely on, doesn't miss games, smart guy who's not going to make stupid mistakes, that would be Graham Barton. So if we can get him at 31, I'd be more than pleased. But I just don't know if it'll happen given how good of a player he is and how he can start today and be a really, really great contributor. But let's move on to Darius Robinson. Now, I've kind of seen where people are on him. You either really love him or you really hate him. And for me, I really love him. But I'm not looking at him as an edge player, as a lot of people are. I think he's a defensive tackle. And my comp for him is DeForest Buckner. I really see a lot of that in him. And when Defoe came out, there was a lot of the same things. Doesn't have a plan. He has a few moves, but he doesn't have a deep bag with a bunch of moves he can go to. But the power is there. He's an elite run defender. His motor is impeccable. He has the frame to fill out more. He's 285 right now. So maybe he gets to 295, even 300. He'll still have really quick feet and be fast enough to be a real menace in the interior. And he's a guy who I say you can make him a 10 to 12 sack guy by year 3. I really believe that with him. But the reason why I think for the Niners, if he's there at 31, he would be so valuable to be a run stuffer because he's one of the best in the draft at that. And we cannot stop the run. Javon Hargrave is a pass rush specialist, right? Yeah. And our opposite edge of Nick Bosa is always bad against the run, unless your name is Cleveland Farrell and you're just slightly above average. But you get a guy like this in here, I can imagine rundowns where it's Bosa, Hargrave, and then you throw Darius Robinson and you Turgos Matos out there. And no one is going to get by those people. So
yeah,
for me, again, he has the run-stopping ability, but the pass-rushing upside is why he's number 19 for me and why I have a gold helmet on him as well.
All right. Sounds good.
Cool. Let's go to Chop Robinson, edge out of Penn State. And this is a guy I struggle with. I really do. I had a first-round grade on him for the whole process. And just a couple days ago, I made him an early second-round player. But in terms of traits, he has everything. And I think he relies on them maybe a bit too much. He's so fast. He bends so much that he just runs by people. And there were plays where people didn't touch him and he was free in the backfield for a sack. I don't know how often that's going to happen in the NFL. But you bring in a Chris Kasarik who can help him get a deep bag of moves, help him create a pass rushing plan, maybe get 10 more pounds on him to be okay in the run game. He could be a 15 to 18 sack type of guy. And so those are traits that you have to bet on. He's my number 26 player overall for that reason. He has a huge potential to be a bust, but he also has the all-pro potential that you won't always find in round 2. So if you're looking for a speed edge opposite Bosa, who might take 2 or 3 years to really get on the scene and be an elite player, that would be Chop Robinson. But the traits are so special. Just watch some highlights if you haven't. I really encourage everyone in here to do that. He is just a fun player to watch. Just needs a plan and needs more technique to go.
He's already got the right name, and technique-wise, Kasurk will bring that out. He does that with everybody. And as far as guys being a little bit of just relying on natural ability, DeForest Buckner didn't come in with a lot of tip, but DeForest Buckner was just a monster when he came in. I mean, the guy was around that corner, and it took two or three guys to try to stop him. But after a while, they started giving that a little more trouble. We've seen some smaller people take him out. It was all about pad level because of the height and all. And then after a while, he got that master. DeForest Buckner is now a Pro Bowler. So, yeah, we'll see what happens to Chop if we can pick him up.
Yeah, and I mean, same thing with Darius Robinson, just a guy who's so physically gifted, in my opinion, that he'll come in. You might need to work with him a little bit, but they have the upside to be all pros. So that leaves me to number 38 on my board, my fifth player in the gold helmet section, Javon Baker, wide receiver out of UCF. And I'm watching NFL Network on the side so I can watch the draft as we do this. And I saw he had Javon Baker in the 120s. And it makes me think, how do you come away with this player with that grade? I just don't understand it. There are plenty of people that I've seen that have first round grades on him, and there's plenty of people who have fourth round grades on him. So another one of those polarizing players. But for me, again, I said it on Sunday, I believe he has Brandon Ayuk potential, but at the very least, he'll be a really awesome number two. Where, yeah, Debo can be your number three schematically in the offense, and I feel amazing about that, right? But Javon Baker, he has like this acrobatic quality about him where he can contort his body in so many ways, leg over here, arm that way, and he can just
Still
come
making
down
that
with
play.
it.
Oh, I love those kind of guys. They get injured a lot, though, Tony. That's my only concern because they will sacrifice their body on every play. I love that,
Yeah.
but I want them to stay on the field. You know what? I
Yeah.
got a feeling, Tony, it's going to be Ayuk for the reasons that we just stated, and also the money's involved. Debo's already paid. We don't have to worry about him. Debo will be a nice chip because a lot of people think Debo is a premier running back for how he plays his style of football. But Ayuk is that guy that could go to any team. I think we might have to pick this kid up.
Yeah, I love him, and I don't think it'll be like he's Ayuk today. I don't see that. I think it'll be more like what Ayuk did. Take 2 years to develop. Year three, you're awesome. You're just not featured. And then year four, you break out. I think that's what we'll see here with Baker. There's some nuanced things he needs to fix in his game, but like I said, his acceleration, deceleration, where he can put the jets on and then stop and then immediately pick back up.
Oh,
It's amazing route running.
That kills
His
the defensive
salesmanship.
back. I love it.
What did you say, Rumbo?
As that kills a corner. I play defensive back. When guys can stop on a dime and you got to anticipate which way he's going to go, you can get embarrassed so badly you can hear the guys in the stands, ooh, like, oh, Jesus. You got to run back and act like your calf muscle or something is pulled. It's embarrassing. So, yeah, I like those kind of guys as long as I'm not out there with them.
Yeah, as long as you're not out there, I love that. But he has that ability. It's awesome. And the few things I would worry about, he isn't great against press coverage. That was one of the knocks on Ayuk coming out. But Ayuk got bigger, he got stronger, and now it's not really a big issue for him. There were a few reps in the Super Bowl, but when you have the best press corner on you, L'Jarius Sneed, every single play, you're bound to lose a couple. So I wouldn't use that as a measuring stick. He's more of a number two right now, and he'll be serviceable. And then in 2 years, he can be your number one. That's how I project him to be. But you just watch him and you read the reports of people too who have him in the third and the fourth round. It's like, are you even looking at what you're writing? Because all of these qualities you put in his strengths are first round qualities. And all the weaknesses that he has, I feel he can either just bulk up or it can get coached out of him, right? So that's why for me he's number 38. I have an early second round grade on Javon Baker and another one of my gold helmet guys.
All right. Kyrie
Cool.
Jackson.
Kyrie Jackson out of Oregon. I love this guy so much, and I'm higher on him than most people, but I know there are a few people who have early second round, late first round grades on him. Brett Coleman might be a name that you know. He's consistently talked about him in that way, but he has everything I want in an outside corner, and maybe he's not the fastest guy, but I think a 4.5 is enough in the scheme that we run. We see Lenore, who's slower than Kyrie Jackson, be a really solid number two. And so for me with Kyrie Jackson, you see the physicality where he can end the rep at the line of scrimmage and press. He is amazing at that. His man coverage is really sticky. And I think he can play a type of zone coverage where you're not asking him to be on an island, but he will play his role and he'll be so physical and aggressive at the catch point and in the run game that you don't really have to worry about him. So in terms of players, I have a Brandon Browner comp on him, a really elite number two corner. I don't know if he'll ever be the lockdown number one, man-to-man coverage all over the field, but I think he'll be an excellent number two corner, and you can't have enough of those in the NFL today. Most teams don't even have a shutdown corner. We have one. Let's
True.
get someone to complement him. And Kyrie Jackson to me is just a really underrated player because he can end the rep at the line, and he's so long, he's 6'4", that he can
Oh,
still, when he loses, get that arm out and either cover the guy's face or just knock it out completely. So he's, again, my number 44, one of my favorite corners in the class.
it sounds good to me because the fact of the matter is, no one's. Richard Sherman has changed the whole concept of playing that position to begin with. Because if you got cerebral content, in order to be able to cover, you need to know other things besides, okay, I'm watching him come off the line of scrimmage, backpedal, pivot. Dude, you needed to know what that quarterback was going to do. Get a feel for what he likes to do
Yes,
and be there when the ball gets there. Talanoa Hufanga is going to continue to make his career based on that kind of thinking. He's good.
exactly.
Yeah, and if this guy's got that kind of instinct, I'd take that over speed any day. I've seen too many guys.
I feel like it does. Something that I believe in is in order to have a strong mind, you need to have a strong body. And he's physically superior to everybody on the field. So, of course, he's going to be comfortable making those decisions in real time in a split second.
6'4", he has every right to feel that guy could plug a lot of lanes. If I'm a quarterback, I'm not throwing in that direction unnecessarily because the fact of the matter is, he may look small from where I'm throwing that ball, but he's long, and my receivers
Yeah,
are smaller. That's already his disadvantage right there. He can come over and recover. It's too late. He's got the ball. He's coming back with it. I love it. Yeah.
exactly. So he's great. But let's move on to 54. Most people have him. I've seen in the 80, 90, 100 range. Johnny Wilson out of Florida. I don't project him as a receiver, though. I don't think he is incapable. I think he'll be a really solid number two and an excellent number three in the NFL. I don't think he'll ever be a number one receiver, but I do think he can be an all pro tight end. And so my comp for him is Darren Waller. He is nasty in the run game, super physical finisher. So I trust him to be in line. And in terms of getting down the field, he gets there in a hurry. He runs a 4.52 40, and being 6'7", like you're going to be able to moss everybody. So if you put a Dre Greenlaw on him, who's 5'11", he's going to have 8 inches of height on him, and you can be as good in coverage as you want. He can just out physical you in that way. And so for me, having a tight end who can be an elite player in the run game and give you mismatches in the passing game, sign me up all day. I think
Yeah.
as a receiver, he'd be probably around 100 for me, but because I have him as a tight end, he's 54. The few things I would want him to improve a little bit at the catch point, he doesn't always play to 6'7", 230. I
No.
think he can just maybe bulk up a bit, but have more confidence in your hands. And that's something that I think can be broken out of at the NFL level. Never easy, of course, but I think he can do it. And the other thing is he moves fast, but going laterally side to side, it is a bit hard for him. His hips are a bit clunky. But you watch his feet move and you watch his upper body. It's freakish the way that he moves for a guy that's that big, that long, and that thick. So for me, number 54 player, he would be an elite tight end two from day one. And then when Kittle goes, I would trust him to be our tight end of the future.
You're feeling that good about him. Tony, his physicality as far as blocking, is he going to be a bruiser? Is he going to be a tough guy? Is he going to be anything like George
Yes.
Kittle when it comes to being mean at the snap?
Yes. I
I
think
think
he
so.
will. Now, a lot of it is from receiver. Most of everything you see is from receiver on film. So he's just decimating DBs, and they're never
Yeah.
winning that rep. So it
Yeah.
might be harder for linebackers, but I think he has the confidence, he has the frame and the physicality to be able to do that at a tight end position in line.
All right. That's the
Cool.
thing, because conversions like that, I just hope he's ready for that. Because, like you're saying, he's used to going out and punishing little kids when he's
Yeah,
running out there for receiving. And all of a sudden now, these guys are a little bit bigger, they're a little stronger. And well, we're going to beef him up though if we get him. So we'll see. All right.
definitely. And he is the best player to learn from anyway. So I have no doubts about him if they were to select him there.
All
At
right.
57, my next guy on the gold helmet prospect list is Mason McCormick out of South Dakota State. He can be a guard for you. That's what he played in college. I think he's so smart, so calm. I think he'd be a great center. He's not going to overreact to anything. He's incredibly intelligent and aware of everything that's happening around him. I know in the Kyle offense, you want a very intelligent center because he's the guy that's making the checks at the line to shift your offensive line protections, call out the mic, all those types of things. And so him and Graham Barton to me, and Jackson Powers Johnson, who I didn't talk about but I really like, those would be the three guys I feel comfortable day one being able to do that. Um, I think he just has the finishing mentality that you want from that player as well. Anywhere along the offensive line, you want that. And so there's a few things with maybe he's not ever going to be an all pro player. I think physically he's not really going to get there, but he's athletic enough. He has good mechanics that can still improve. I think he can be just a solid. You draft him, and he's a guy you never talk about a whole lot, but he's on your team for 8 to 10 years. That's what I envision in him. So all the all pro centers that I see are round one grades. The next level of that is just all reliable round two. That's where I have him.
Well, his work ethic is high.
Yes.
Some of the things that you mentioned about him, that's what's going to matter the most. Because I like Chris, our offensive line coach. He seems to get the best out of players that may be playing a little better than they ordinarily would. We've got some guys that are really questionable. I still don't know what McKivitz is going to do. Is somebody going to come in and take his job this year? Is he? The discussion has been leaning toward he's had time to develop. We need to be patient with him. He could be better. For all we know, he could be on the left side. I passed out when I read that part. But he's not. McKivitz is not going to the left side. I'd rather have him retired. Trent Williams come back out of retirement than put McKivitz over there. Good Lord. Well, we could be wrong.
McKivitz is just a below average player, but he's so cheap. Like, are you really going to spend all that capital or money to replace him with another average guy? So
no, please no.
That's the whole dilemma with him. You always want to upgrade, but it never makes sense to. So, yeah, I am ready to move on to the next guy here. Tyke Smith out of Georgia at 59 overall for me. He is my favorite safety in the class. I have a number one overall grade on him in that position group. If you were to classify Cooper DeJean as a safety, he'd be number two. So he's not a first round player. I have a late second round grade on him, but I think he's better than a guy like Tyler Nubin. And I'll tell you why. All the same physicality, all of the same coverage ability, and I think even better in coverage. He's so physical. Like, you want that type of guy in the nickel on rundowns, just blowing things up, blowing past tight ends. Like, he did that. And for a guy at his size, it's very impressive. He's 5'11", I think 200 pounds, but the way he plays is really incredible. But what I love about him, he has the free safety versatility that we always talk about, where I trust him to be a single high safety. He's incredibly smart, very instinctual, and his trigger is so quick downhill. When he sees a route break, he's coming for it immediately. And so those are traits I really look for. The reason why Jair Brown was so loved by so many people, Talanoa Hufanga, is they had that. The difference with Tyke Smith here, he also has the speed and the coverage ability and intelligence to be way better than those two guys ever will be. I know
he sounds
Hufanga
familiar, Tony. He sounds awfully familiar. I remember a guy that came in the first round, Trent Baalke, picked him up years ago. Sounds just like him.
Yeah.
Same sound. A little heavier, though.
I think Ward is more of a safety than Tyke Smith, just because he's a tad bit more
savvy,
like instinctual in coverage ability there in terms of zone. But Tyke Smith has a lot of that, like I talked about. And for me, what I love about him is the versatility. I think even though Hufanga was an all-pro, it was an overrated season. Really, I don't want to say encapsulated by a bunch of highlights, but there were moments in that year toward the end where I didn't feel quite as strong about him. I think he can be better than Hufanga and a chess piece for a defense, just like Jimmy Ward was. That's not my comp for him, but I think he can play a similar role in that way.
All right.
Cool. Let's go to the next guy who's kind of a safety, but I think he'll be one of the best nickels in the draft. Rabbit Taylor Demerson out of Texas Tech. Another guy. Yeah, I mean, his name is Dadrion, but everyone calls him Rabbit.
Because he's quick, I guess.
I remember Jack Rabbit, Janoris Jenkins. That was one of my favorite nicknames. And so this is another one of those that I really like. But you think of a rabbit, how twitchy they are, how quick they are. how big their eyes are always bulging and they can just see everything that's in front of them. It's
Yes.
a similar type of way with Rabbit Taylor Demerson, but he has the physicality, maybe not to the same degree as Tyke Smith. I don't know if in the run game he'll be quite the force that I saw there, but he'll still be above average, really, really good. And for me, with him, what makes him special is his hips are some of the most fluid hips I've seen this year in the draft. Like he can contort his body almost to stay with a player. And so when you're coming out of the slot, which is where I project him to be really good at, you need to be able to make those quick movements and be able to move super quickly, along with the instincts that we talked about to be able to see it and have the confidence to go. He has the physical ability to do just really special things in that way. So I don't think the range is quite as good as Tyke Smith, and I don't think he's going to be the chess piece in terms of putting him in the box in the way Tyke Smith might be able to do. But I still think he'll be a damn good nickel corner. And I think at 81, that's a steal. I wanted to put him higher. There were just so many other guys I love that I couldn't do it with. But he is a gold helmet player. And if we have him available at 93, that's the guy I want being the nickel if we haven't gotten another corner.
If you're just joining us, Tony's running down through his gold helmet players that he'd like to see drafted by the 49ers right now. Tony, what round? We're at 90, we're at 90, 81. We're going to 91 next.
Yeah, so 91, Tyrone Tracy Jr. I think the last couple weeks or so, I've seen everybody talk about him. So I feel good that I was one of the first adopters of Tyrone Tracy. But to give all of the audience here perspective, former wide receiver from Iowa, and he was pretty good. Like he wasn't a bad player. Probably would have gone sixth, seventh round if he had declared as a receiver. But he wasn't going to where he thought he could go. And so he transferred to Purdue with the guy who recruited him. He made him into a running back. And now he is my third rated running back in the draft. So let me talk about him for a minute.
All right.
Something that we talked about Sunday is pass protection. And that will be a key theme across all of my running backs is they're rated highly, partly because of their pass protection. He's great. And he can pick up anyone from anywhere. And I think he'll even get better as he learns to have better pad level, better hand placement. But that's a strength for him. He has the outside zone vision that we talked about where you see a cutback lane out of the corner of your eye that most people won't see, and then he'll just immediately sprint back there. And so those are things that I say, Kyle Shanahan isn't always perfect. He's damn close to it, but he's not. And so if a run play breaks down or an offensive lineman doesn't do his job, will he see the cutback lane that a good defender created by being in the right spot? And can he get there? He has that ability.
And Tony, you bring up a good point because a lot of times people blame Kyle Shanahan for everything that's going wrong on the field. Remember, that player has to make some judgments on his own out in that field. He can't always be coached. And Kyle can't stay in his headset and say, go left, go right, go left, straight.
Yeah.
That's why CMC is such an amazing running back. You won't see CMC hitting the edges very often, but he will find those little creases right around within a range of about 5 or 6 yards right or left. And he will find them, and he will get in them quick. And that's what the running back's going to have to be efficient with. You put your foot down, hit the hole, don't hesitate, don't think, move. That's why how many guys have we seen coming in bust with the 49ers running backs? 3 years in a row. They can't cut the mustard.
And Joe Williams, too. So, man, those were guys where, like, even with Ty Davis Price, I thought those things were pretty good. He just wasn't the physical athlete to be able to get it done in terms of speed and change of direction. So, but yeah, with Tyrone Tracy, the pass protection, the vision is amazing. The receiving game, like he is a great receiver because he played receiver for 4 years. So for me, just a 3-down player who I think could become a Pro Bowler. My comp for him is Tevin Coleman because he has that speed. I think he ran a 4.3940 at the combine. I need to double check that. But the few things I would say, he needs a little bit of time to get to top speed. He can still get there, but it's not like a McCaffrey or Debo where you're at 100 miles per hour by your second step, right? He's not quite that player, but he does have the deep speed once he sees the lane. And then the decisiveness, which for a lot of guys, it might be an issue for me, but he's played receiver for less than a year, right? So those are things that you can get coached into you as you know the scheme better and you see more things on film. You're like, I've seen this 1,000 times. I'm just going to hit the hole here. I'm not going to try to make this guy miss. I'm just going to go and have a touchdown. So Those are the few knocks on him that I think people are overstating a little bit. Because when you get him with the Bobby Turner, those things will be a lot better. And I think with him, what helps him is he's very new to the position and he's already soaked up so much information. I think he'll be able to do it at a really high level.
Tony, what's his size again?
I think he's 6'1", 210. Let me double check that. He might be a bit lighter than that, but he plays tough on film. If he would just get his damn pads down, he'd be able to run people over, in my opinion. But
Yeah,
looking it up right here,
6'1", 210. You know what? Thing is, if he works with Debo, put a red
6 foot.
shirt on him when he first comes in. Let him work behind Debo for a while, and let him be the next Debo. Because whenever I saw Ray come out on the field, and he was supposed to be Debo's
It
backup,
was never the same. Yeah.
I said, you know what? That's wow, guys. We don't have anybody bigger than. I mean, can we put Mason out there or something like that? No, we could never could. So But anyway, yeah.
So yeah, he's 6 foot 209. He's well built, but he just like Tevin Coleman, he has the upright running style that makes people just kind of look away, kind of disgust them a little bit. But I don't really have an issue with that because I saw Raheem Mostert do that for so long, and he's still so productive. So
But remember,
of all the things to nitpick, that's not one of the things I would.
But remember though, Tony, he had world class speed. I could take him from the football field and put him in the Olympics, and he would get a medal. I mean, the guy is fast.
He's super fast. Yeah. So, but yeah, Tyrone Tracy, a 3-down player. You can trust him anywhere. Something we've talked about at length is Jordan Mason, Eli Mitchell. They're not good pass protectors. So they're literally bringing in Kyle Juszczyk to be the 3rd-down running back when they want to give the illusion that they're pass protecting or if they need to. I don't want that to happen.
Nobody was fooled.
McCaffrey should not be blocking, and we need a second guy who can. So Tracy, for me, he will be probably a day 3 pick, but I have a day 2 grade on him at 91.
All right. And I love your reasoning behind it too.
What's up?
And I love your reasoning behind it too. We need mules out there. We got enough thoroughbreds, and you're right. We need to have some guys out there, blue collar guys that enjoy and have that George Kittle mindset of loving to do things to a man against his will. I have that kind of attitude. George would rather take down a defensive end. I think he likes that as much as he likes going out and catching passes. Look at his face when he says that. He loves it.
Exactly. I want players like that, and Tracy is willing to do the dirty work as well. And I think that's what makes our team so special, because most people are willing to do it except for Deebo Samuel. But that's neither here nor there. Let's go on to man. Jalen Simpson here. I have him higher than most people. I see a lot of concerns about how slender he is, and he really is like very slender. He gets thrown around like a rag doll in the run game. So for me, I don't want him in the box as a safety. And I honestly don't want him down as a nickel a whole lot as a safety on rundowns either. But he is a guy where you get 10 to 15 pounds on him. I don't think it'll greatly change his athletic ability. He is so fast, so fluid. His hips are just so greasy. And kind of like I talked about with Rabbit Taylor Demerson, except he can do it later in the play, which is not something a lot of guys can do. His route recognition, excellent. Ball skills, elite. And so for me, he's a true free safety. He kind of reminds me of Cordell Flott coming out for the Giants, where they've used him at corner, and it doesn't make sense. He'd be an amazing safety at that spot with his skill set. And so I think what we lack on the back end is a true free safety. You have Hufanga and you have Jair Brown. Both need to really be in the box. They were playing split safety roles with each other, and it just wasn't that good. It really wasn't. They were doing just enough to not be a huge liability, but I was just watching a video. I think Rich Madrid put something out where you have all of these coverage busts by Talanoa Hufanga, and a lot of that is the physical ability not being there. So with him, Simpson is a pure free safety. Don't put him, more than 8 yards close to the line of scrimmage. You still want him to bulk up a bit. What I do like is if he did bulk up, he has the physicality and he throws his body out there. So even though he's getting moved like a rag doll, he wants to be an enforcer, which I really like. So he's number 97 for me. I think not having the versatility in terms of a safety player would really hurt him a little bit. Like I want my safeties to be able to come into the box every now and then, but a pass down corner in the nickel or true free safety would be an excellent spot for me.
Yeah, because you bring up something that haunted most 49er fans with Talanoa Hufanga. If it didn't happen every week, it happened every other week or so. You're watching downfield a touchdown play and Talanoa Hufanga trailing the play and the player, and you wonder how he got in that position. As far as safety, your positioning on the field shouldn't make you that far behind the play. And then I'm thinking maybe it was somebody else's fault, but then no, that's Talanoa misread that play. So
Exactly.
that's got to stop. We'll see what happens, and hopefully his leg is not going to take a year or two for him to get
Yeah,
back to just the speed he was at. So
I'd rather have him on the field than not. But
yeah, I still
again,
love
he's a
Talanoa.
player.
Yeah, he makes more great plays than he does bad for sure.
Yes, it's just the bat is so bad. You can't help but think,
I
can we
know.
upgrade here? So, yeah. But Jalen Simpson, I love him more than most people. A late day three or late round three grade that I have on him. But let's move on to linebacker Trevin Wallace out of Kentucky. He screams 49ers project to me. He really does. He is just so fast, so physical. It's like a freight train running down at you at 6'1", 230. Like he is a special athlete. He really is. And so for me, that's basically where it ends with how great of a player he is. It's kind of like Chop Robinson, where the traits are so special and you don't see it every year. You really want to have it on your team, but you know it's going to take work to make him a three down player. And so with Trevin Wallace, you watch him play, it's all reacting and no reading. He sees something happen, so he follows it. But he's not going to be like a Fred Warner. Oh, I think they're running duo up the middle. Let me go around this gap. Or let me stand up the center so Dre Greenlaw can come in. Like he's not thinking of any of that, right? He's just thinking, oh, where's the ball? Let me run to it. And so that's a big problem. And he's
Yeah,
also out of position too in the pass game. Against play action, especially, he'll see the running back look like he has the ball, just start running downhill. It's like, dude, there's a crosser right behind you. Now they're open for a 30-yard gain. So
Tony.
for me,
Okay, you're sitting him down in the classroom. You're sitting there, the coach. You're kind of frustrated. You're wondering. You got all this talent sitting next to you. He makes a lot of boneheaded mistakes. How do you get that out of him in the first? You watch the tape. Maybe you can teach him that way. How long? But that puts him in a project category to some
yes.
degree as well.
Now, the reason why he's 99 for me, he's
Yeah,
super
for that
young. He's not
reason.
even 21 yet, from what I understand, and he's new to the position. So you get Johnny Holland in there. You have the greatest linebacker duo I've seen in my lifetime. I think I don't know about that. Willis and Bowman was special, but Greenlaw and Warner are right up there. So you have the teachers
Yeah,
from a coaching perspective, and you have them from a player perspective. If there's any situation to go into where he can become an all pro, it's in San Francisco. And I
yeah.
really believe he has that ability. He just needs to know what he's seeing out there. And I think everything else will fall into place. So he's a 2 to 3 year project for me, where he's probably not going to start the first year or two. Year three comes around, everyone's talking about him and nobody knows why. That's going to be that type of player. So
Hey,
I
hey,
really love him. I
and
really
Tony,
do.
you're also describing an excellent special teams guy for the in the
Mhm.
meantime. If he comes down the field like a freight train, look out, look out. Oh, yeah.
Exactly. That's
So
also the appeal to him too. Like you don't need to worry about where are they going. Maybe a bit more now with the new kickoff rule, but even then, guys are still just going to be sprinting full speed ahead, and you
mm,
want those guys who don't think, they just play. So I
mm,
think he'd be great there for now. In the meantime, I think he'll be like a supercharged D Winters and just bigger and a little bit taller. That's kind of what I see with him. And so they
yeah.
both have amazing potential. Question is, will they put it together? That's why he's my number 99 player and not my number
Mm.
39 player.
There you go.
Cool. So let's talk about another linebacker here that I've seen nobody talk about. And that's James Williams out of Miami. And I think it's because he played predominantly safety. So people aren't looking at him when they're projecting him as a linebacker. But a lot of this is seeing the skill set and the player. Will they project? He's 6'5". He's physical. He'll run downhill and just absolutely flatten somebody out, right? And I love that about him. He also has the coverage, not only ability because of how big he is, and he's honestly fast. Like he's not incredibly fast, but he's in that Kyrie Jackson level where It's maybe third tier speed, never elite, but you're not going to get beat a whole lot to where every single game you have an issue with him, right? You might have a couple here and there, but you move him to linebacker. Now that's really good speed, but he's so big you can't throw around him, and he's pretty nimble for a guy his size as well. So I look at him as a project where you teach him the nuances of being a linebacker. You help him become a smarter run defender, right? He's super physical, but maybe he's not in the right place at the right time. He's not reading things, as we talked about with Trevin Wallace. So he is another project for me, but I think he's more pro ready than Trevin Wallace simply because of the experience he has at safety and the fact that he's so big, it's harder to throw around him. So here's a guy where, let's say Devondre Campbell gets hurt and you need a number two linebacker. I think James Williams in a pinch can be that for you. I don't think he'll ever be this elite Fred Warner, but he'll be a really great number two as a ceiling. And in the fourth round, you want that. And I really like the build, the player, the history with him. That's why he's a gold helmet for me.
You know, you mentioned that Fred Warner. Did you know that Fred Warner was going to be all that and more coming out of Brigham?
No,
I did.
I
I
didn't.
did. You, yeah. See, some of these guys can be surprises, and
Yeah.
it seems your best linebackers these days also are reconverted safeties. Have you noticed
Hmm.
that? That's the way it
That
is.
was
That's,
Fred.
that's how the NFL's evolved. You've got to have the ability to read and react, and you've also got to be a thumper. That's
Exactly.
a rough combination to be. So you could have something there, Tony.
You're explaining Fred Warner when he came out, and I obviously Warner is such a smart player and just a Greek god in terms of his physical
Oh,
attributes. But James Williams, again, another converted safety that I feel can be a great linebacker in the NFL.
hopefully, and if we pick him up. You got Blake Watson here, another running
Wow.
back, Tony, your last pick. You know, you remind me of the 49ers with those running backs because I'm usually crying big tears every year because and there's something else we could have picked up besides another running back. We can get the best running backs we can get
Mhm.
are usually undrafted free agents, you know,
Yeah,
which has been the
later
case.
round guys.
Late rounded, yeah. So,
Not
talk about
everybody is Christian McCaffrey, eighth overall pick, right? You have
it.
tons of players like Derrick Henry at 36. Then you have guys like Austin Eckler who were undrafted, right? The range is so big. Alvin Kamara around three. You can just
Most are,
list off everybody.
yeah, there's so many.
And yeah, so with Blake Watson, for me, he was a guy I just saw less than a week ago. Like last Friday is when I first saw him because I heard someone talk about him, and I love him. He is a former receiver from Memphis. He is a running back now, though. And so a lot of the things we talk about with Tracy hold true, where he just isn't decisive enough, maybe doesn't understand the position the way that you want to at this point, but he's so new to it. He's so special with the ball in his hands. He has elite home run speed where you don't realize it when you watch him. He looks not incredibly fast, but you see guys are not pulling toward him, right? It's just like the same. Here's my safety, here's my running back. They're moving together. So for me, he has that. He's thick and stocky, so he's going to be able to break tackles in a similar way to Debo. I don't think he's ever going to be the receiver Debo is. But I do see a lot of potential with him. The issue for me is pass protection, like we've talked about, and almost like he doesn't always know where he's going. He doesn't have great vision because he's so new to it. That's what makes Tyrone Tracy so special. Like you've been a running back for less than a year and you're already having elite vision and you can see every corner of the field, right? So that's where he's different. Blake Watson doesn't have that. But if you're just talking a pure fifth round, let me just throw something at the wall and hope it sticks. He could be a guy who,
Okay.
yeah, I want him on my team. He's a key contributor, not only in special teams, but I can throw him on the field at receiver, at running back, and he can be really good. So for me, he was a guy that made a late introduction into my gold helmet players. But at 149, he's a guy that I just want him. If they take him at 132, 135, I will be here for it. Even though it's, higher than what I have him on my board, that's the type of player where he could go at 100 and you're happy that he goes there. You know what I mean?
I definitely feel it because every year we get players that, and every year in the draft I question. I didn't know what a Womack was the year before last. I said,
Mhm.
"Now why'd you pick him up?" And he looks a little scrawny.
Exactly.
And sometimes you can't look at a player just by his physical attributes and make a conclusion. And I tend to do that. And then later on, you see something out of these players. Womack is one of the most vicious cornerbacks we have. When I seen him make a play, and he was like, the receiver's like towering over him. Womack is within his body. Every time the guy
Yes.
moves, Womack's not getting left. I said, you know what?
Exactly.
I like him. I like him. Look at that. He's like a little Wolverine out there. Oh my God,
Yes.
the guy can't get rid of him. See, that's a football player, So
No, I wish you would use him more. Everything you described, I completely agree with, and I just wish we could use him a little bit more. Like
he's
we
gonna
haven't played him really at all the last year.
remember he was gonna. They tried to start him for a little while. Who was that? That they put? Oh, that's right. He was out there a few minutes, and then all of a sudden they went back to Demo because Ambry Thomas was pissing everybody off. It was kind of a bizarre situation there. But Womack's going to be back again. And the 49ers really do like him. If they cut him, I'll be a little surprised. So, yeah, we'll see what he does this year.
Yeah, I hope he doesn't go. I think again he could move into that nickel role and be really good. We just haven't seen it from him yet. So, but yeah, I'm pumped up for him. And in terms of the gold helmet players, that's all I have.
That's
So,
good, Tony, because I love your rundown on him. It was concise. It was articulated right. So what we're gonna do.
yeah,
What we need to do is pause. Tony and I are gonna be back. We're gonna pause, clean up a few things here, and get right back on and get ready for Roger DeGale to come out and say, the Chicago Bears are on the clock, and then they go to the commercial break and they come back and they say, Tony, who's gonna be the guy? As if we didn't know.
yeah.
Is Caleb going to Chicago, or is it going to be Jaden? Because a lot of people are saying a lot of good things about Jaden of late, of the last couple of weeks,
Yeah.
actually.
I'm stoked for Adam Peters because he's getting Jaden Daniels. Caleb Williams is not falling past one. They've had formal interviews only with Caleb Williams. He had one top 30 visit, and that was with Chicago. They've taken him out to dinner. He talks as if Keenan Allen is going to be with me type of thing. So
Yeah.
he will be going number one, and he is a better prospect than Jaden Daniels. But at two,
Yeah.
for Adam Peters, hell of a pick. I wish we
Yeah.
had a guy like him available at 3 a few years ago.
Man, I tell you what, here's the thing, because Zach Wilson, the Jets made clear they were going to take him. There wasn't any conversation about any other quarterback in the draft. Zach was over, the family was over. I mean, they were doing dinners every night, and it was clear. And then all of a sudden, Zach comes in, and now Zach's not even worthy of being a journeyman. I feel bad for him. So, we'll see what happens. I can't wait.
I honestly feel if he came to San Francisco, he would have been a great player. But
You
that's
think
just-
Zach? Maybe because there was some talk about making Zach Wilson. There were some rumors running around, as there usually are, as Zach Wilson could end up in San Francisco. The first thing I did is, what? I'm just going by his body of work. I can't, But maybe he could change with us. It's a different program. Who knows?
I just
maybe
don't think the Jets really protected him at all. And he's a guy I don't want to trade for because that means Brock Purdy might have his job, questioned. I don't think it would be taken, but he gets hurt for a game or two. Wilson plays lights out. Should he be in the conversation, right? So I don't want to deal with any of that. That's why having a guy like Josh Dobbs is perfect. Never going to challenge your starter, but he'll be an amazing backup.
Tony, pull up. We'll continue this conversation in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
Tony and I
Great.
will be doing the draft, and Tony will be breaking it down on every pick from 1 to 32, or that surprise that's coming up. Tony, be back in a few minutes. Fam, see you in a few. Don't go away. Niners! Whew.
Oh,